I can bet you anything that if you asked any independent consultant what keeps them up at night, they're most likely going to tell you getting a steady stream of work. And interestingly enough, it's not usually due to a lack of competence or talent. A lot of talented, experienced consultants I know face the same issue at different levels. What I found it is differentiation. A lot of us consultants look and sound alike. Even the top consultants, even the most experienced consultants. And a lot of the time, what usually gets us the job is relationships. And that's powerful. And I am in no way, shape, or form putting that down. But a lot of the time, we're not differentiated in any way. So a lot of us, there's a joke I like to tell that all the top consultants in any field know each other because they probably bumped into each other at different prospect sites trying to pitch and compete for the work, right? A lot of us are competing in the same places. We look alike to the customers. So the customers don't know what they really need to pick out the best candidate for the job. Everybody looks alike. So to them, picking anybody works. And that kind of commoditizes what we do. It kind of becomes a race to the cheapest option, if that makes sense, right? Now, in the book Blue Ocean Strategy, there's a line that sticks out to me. The line says, in order to beat the competition, you need to stop trying to beat the competition, something along those lines. That's the kind of mindset shift that we need to have as consultants. This is my gospel. The way to beat the competition is to, instead of competing with them, is to specialize, pick an area of specialty, and let that be your singular focus. By doing that, you carve out a space in the market where either just you or you and very few people play in that space, thereby opening you up to more opportunities. But the challenge here is that one of the biggest hurdles I have to cross when working with a client is to get them to understand that by specializing, you're not saying no to opportunities. There's usually opposition, there's usually pushback when I tell people to specialize as a means to grow their operations. So in this video, I'll explain why specialization is actually a good move and it's not necessarily going to shrink the amount of jobs you're exposing yourself to. And also I'll share 3 steps to getting ahead of 99% of your competition, right? And spoiler alert, step 1 is to specialize. But step 2 and 3 are to build on specializing. But before I jump into it, 2 things. 1, if you're a consultant and you're trying to scale your operations and you're trying to get a steady stream of income, I have a document called the Consultant Clarity Kit. You can download it for free by clicking the link in the description. The document contains, I think, 3 to 5 frameworks that will help you to position yourself, create an offer, by which I mean productize your services, and a couple of other frameworks that will help you to put you in good stead to be able to make you more attractive to prospects and give you the foundations you need to scale your operations. You can click the link in the description box below to download it for free. The second thing, please like and subscribe. We're a small channel, we're growing, and your likes and subscriptions actually help signal to the algorithm to help us grow a little bit more. Plus, it's free. And the last thing is drop a comment. If there's anything you don't agree with, if there's anything you agree with, if there's anything that's unclear, drop a comment. I would rather be creating content that is valuable to you. So by dropping a comment, I know what to make clear. I know what you're looking for, and I'm able to streamline what I create. It can be a collaboration thing. All you need to do is just put in the comment box and I will respond to it. With a new video, I'll respond to it in the comment section as well. Yeah, so without further ado, let's jump into it. So the first step to getting ahead of 99% of consultants is to differentiate, is to pick an angle. And the whole idea there is that, first off, consulting is a brutally competitive sport. And so in order to stand out from the competition, it makes sense to pick an angle. But interestingly enough, this gospel is not one of my well-received gospels. It's arguably one of the most difficult parts of my job. It certainly is one of the most critical parts of my job anyway, getting you to hop on the train of specialization, becoming a specialist. I understand, because we feel like when we specialize, when we pick an area of specialty, we feel like we're reducing our options and then reducing the amount of available jobs to us. But my argument is that that's not necessarily true, and I'll show you why. So let's say this dot is us, right? This is the consultants, and we want to keep our options open. We want to take on whatever job is available in the market. So we have, we're having conversation with somebody in law. We're having conversation with somebody in IT. We're having a conversation with a plumbing company. We're having conversation with FMCG. We're having conversation with something in luxury fashion, for example. So we're having all these conversations, right? You can imagine hopping from conversation to conversation and kind of task switching in your head. Because at the end of the day, each one of these verticals, each one of these departments, each one of these different categories of business have their own different nuances. And so you're jumping from conversation to conversation, switching, you know what you're talking about each time. Not saying it's not doable. I'm just saying it's very exhausting. And then the way we typically get projects is outbound. This is why these arrows are pointing out to us. We're going after different companies, right? So we're running after a law agency to have conversations with them about what we can do. Where maybe we do some kind of audit and we present some kind of proposal. And then right after that meeting, and we're running late for another meeting in Nigerian breweries because, you know, we're speaking to one of the brands on the Nigerian breweries and we're having a different set of conversations. And, oh, by the way, this other agency said, or this other financial institution said they're doing a merger and acquisition, and we're having a conversation trying to throw our hat in the ring there as well. So imagine you have a week where you have to do about 9 or 10 of these meetings. Imagine how exhausting that is. And this is without the guarantee of getting the job, by the way. This is just throwing your hat in the ring. This is starting a conversation. This is drawing a proposal and submitting a proposal. This is trying to win the project and things like that. Nothing is guaranteed. That is already exhausting by itself. Now, layered on top of that, there are other consultants just like you doing the exact same thing, going after the exact same set of clients. Every one of you in this space are top consultants, by the way. I'll explain why you're going after the same set of people. In fact, I believe that if you're a top consultant in your field, you know other top consultants in your field because you guys have probably run into the same set of clients or been at the client's office on the day of pitching, right? And so you guys know yourselves because you're going after the same set of clients. Without this competition, is already exhausting. Now you're also competing with these other very good people in your space. Imagine how exhausting that is. This is the picture of the brutally competitive nature of consulting. Now, there is the thing of the way we present ourselves, right? And I'm going to go around a roundabout to make a point here. So the way we present ourselves is solution focused. What I mean by that is we often present ourselves by the solutions we offer on our website. We have a list of services and things like that. What that means is that, oh, I am a branding agency. I am a tax consultant. I am an IT consultant. All these kind of points to what you do, and the people who need what you do, that know they need what you do, can identify that you're the solution to their problem, right? So this is solution focused. But this is the thing. The assumption, there is an assumption we're making when we present ourselves here. And the assumption is that the prospect we're going after knows the solution to the problem they have. And I'm here to tell you, they don't always know that. So let me show you the picture of the market, right? So this is any market. This is a market, any market at all, right? There are three kinds of prospects. There are problem-aware prospects. We're going to call them PAPs. There are solution-aware prospects, call them SAPs or SAPs. And then there are unaware prospects, UAPs, right? Typically in every market, the problem-aware let's start with the solution-aware prospect. The solution-aware prospects are usually a tiny slither of the market. And then the problem-aware prospects are usually a big chunk of the market. And then the biggest chunk of the market is usually unaware prospects, right? I'll explain what each one is in a moment. So typically, the problem-aware prospects are the people that are aware they have a problem. They are feeling some kind of pain. They know they are feeling some kind of pain. They may not understand the full scope of the pain, the full scope of the problem, but they definitely know they have a problem. Okay, so the example I like to give is this, right? Most business leaders don't wake up thinking, I would like us to change our website because, you know, we need a new aesthetic, or I'd like us to improve our IT system to be up to the status quo just because, you know, we just want it to be better. They usually wake up with fire on the mountain. Things like, we're having downtime for the 50th time this month, and this has cost us millions and millions of dollars in revenue or in lost transactions. What's going on? We need a solution to this. Or our e-commerce websites, people are dropping off just before they get to the cart. What's going on? And things like that. Those are actual issues that they face. And sometimes some people know who to call for the problem, but sometimes they don't. For example, I've seen companies that hired like they literally put it in the JD. We're looking for a graphic designer to handle our social media channels. And those kind of things puzzle me because it's in the name, graphic designer. Nothing in that name has anything to do with social. Anyway, that's by the way. So the point is that the PAPs, the problem area prospects, are aware of the problems they have. They may not know the full scope of the problem, but they definitely don't know who to call for the solution, or they are calling the wrong people for the solution, right? The UAPs are not even aware they have the problem in the first place. They have the problem, but they are unaware of the problem. So maybe they know that their business isn't growing, but they don't know what exactly is causing their business not to grow. It could be a content problem. It could be a hiring problem. It could be something else, right? But they are unaware of the actual problem. They may feel the impact of the problem, but they don't know what exactly the problem is. And then the solution aware prospects are people that usually know who to call to solve the problem. Right, I have a plumbing issue, call the plumber, right? So that's it. But usually the SAPs are usually the biggest players in any industry, right? We call them the giants. And so what usually happens is, because of our solution focused way of presenting ourselves to clients, the only people that can resonate with what we do is this small slither of the market, the solution aware prospects. And so you find that everybody here, like I said before, are going after the giants, right? We're all going after the giants. And yeah, I'm just going to put, okay, this is a weird, anyway, everybody's going after the giants. And that's why, like I said before, you're running into the other top consultants in your area, because you guys are vying for the same set of projects, because we're presenting ourselves from the solutions point of view. So we're all going after the same people. And all of this just makes the whole thing. This is the full picture of the brutally competitive nature of consulting, right? So we say we're keeping our options open, but are you really keeping your options open? Are your options really open? Because what we're doing is we're all vying for this area here, leaving out the biggest chunk of the market. Now, these people may not be the biggest players. They may not be able to pay as much as this. But if you're serving 5 of these people, that might be equal to 1 of the SAPs, right? And who knows, there are small players here. You may actually have the budget to at least to afford what you're doing, because it's a big thing to them. It may just be that the impact of what you do for them won't be on the same level as what you do for an SAP. But it doesn't mean that there isn't opportunity here. So when we say we're keeping our options open, are we really keeping our options open? Now, let me give the alternative. By the way, this is what I call the Generalist Trap. Everything I explained here is what I call the Generalist Trap. And it's all based on this assumption that we're keeping our options open. But really, we're not really doing that, because, like I said, we're going after these people. Anyway, I think you get the point now. So let me give the alternative, right, for specializing. So again, specialist. This is the specialist. We'll call it the model for now. I don't know if it's a model or not, but this is us. Now, by becoming a specialist, what I usually advise is you specialize in one problem for one avatar. At least start from here. Now, what I mean by one problem for one avatar is there are different problems that we can solve. So let's say, for example, I'm a branding person, right? I'm from the branding world. So I use branding as an example a lot, because I understand that a little bit more than the other things. So let's say I'm a branding person, right? I help with visual identity, brand strategy, and things like that. So I can apply that set of skills to any business. Any business, you name it, I can apply that set of skills. But the thing is, the nuances, and it's still a branding project, but the nuances per project, the nuances per client, the nuances per vertical, the nuances per department is different, right? So when I say I'm solving one problem, and let's say the problem is a perception problem, for example, what that means for a law firm is different from what that means for an IT firm. What that means for an IT startup is different from what that means for a plumbing startup, for example, and what that means for a school, and what that means for a movie studio. There is still the same branding I'm doing. It's still the same problem I'm solving, the perception problem. But the nuances per client are different. The nuances per industry are different. So when I decide to say, oh, I'm going to apply that thing to finance and entertainment and fashion and FMCG, I'm being pulled in so many directions. I may be able to deliver on those things well, But I can never deliver on those things more than if I specialized on one, if that makes sense. And I'm speaking to people that have small operations here. So you go after one problem that one avatar has, and that will be your area of specialty. So for example, for me, and I'm sure I'm still going to narrow this a little bit more in the future, I'm still learning as I go. For me, I decided to go from brand strategy for companies to brand strategy for B2B consultants. It's still the same branding I'm doing, right? So, and you notice I'm not even calling it branding. If you've been watching my content, you notice I'm not really saying I help B2Bs to brand. I help them to grow their businesses, but really the set of skills I'm applying are branding skills. And by the way, branding goes beyond just visual identity and everything, but that's by the way. So I'm just using myself as an example. I've gone from branding for companies to helping B2B helping B2B consultants grow. That's kind of my real specialty. Probably will streamline in the future. But what it does is it helps me to sit down and focus on the problem that B2B consultants have. That's kind of what I spend my days thinking about. And what are the problems you guys have? What are the typical causes and things like that, right? So that's one problem, one avatar. That's what I mean by specializing. Now, so this is us in this scenario again, right? Unlike this one. And so we specialize in one problem that one avatar. So we know what general direction we're going. So we know that this avatar with this kind of problems exist in this general direction, right? And so my efforts now, again, this is me being outbound. My efforts now are a little bit more streamlined because at least I know at the beginning, you can't, if you're deciding to specialize, you can't just pick one area of specialization and go with it, and that will be the area you go with. There's some R&D that needs to go into it. There's some testing, figuring things out, failing, and things of that nature. But at the very beginning, you know a general direction you're going in, right? And then over time, you can then streamline until you land on something that you're comfortable with, right? And in another video, I guess I'll talk about how to think about or what you can do to specialize. But without going too much into it, I have a consultant's clarity kit. Is a document. It's free to download. You can get it in the description below. And included in that kit, you have a framework I use for specialization, at least to kind of get you started on deciding on where to specialize in. That you can at least test and get some data for and things like that. You can get that in the description below. You can download that, right? So back to this. So this is the model. At least I know I'm going in a general direction. And if I have 10 meetings in a week, at least I know I'm talking about branding for B2B consultants. I can be a bit more relaxed because I know I'm talking about the same thing with a different set of people, but they are the same kinds of people. It's a community of people. I know tomorrow when I wake up and I have 5 meetings tomorrow, each one of those meetings are going to be related to B2B consultants, if that makes sense. That's different from in the morning at 8 a.m. I need to talk to somebody in healthcare. Then by 2 p.m. I need to talk to somebody in FMCG. Then by 3 p.m. I have something with somebody in education. It's a bit more difficult to handle that way. Not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's a bit more difficult to handle that way. So this is the specialist model now. The great thing about this is that it's a little less competitive than this. It sets you apart. Now, by focusing on one problem, you understand the nuances. And this is the cool thing about this. When you specialize in one problem and when you specialize in talking about your problem, this is kind of the opposite of the solution focused way of presenting ourselves. What you can then do here is present yourself as somebody that understands a problem, as an expert in a problem. I call it anchoring your solutions or anchoring what you do in the problems of your prospects. So now I'm talking about the problems we face: serious competition. I'm talking about B2B consultants now, for example. So B2B consultants, serious competition, exhausting, hard to grow, hard to scale, hard to sell, for example. These are some of the things, and these are kind of the things that I speak about, right? So back to the pie chart, right? When you anchor yourself in your prospects' challenges and problems, you get to not only will you appeal to the solution-aware prospects, but you also appeal to the rest of the markets, to be honest with you. Because what then happens is, first of all, the solution-aware prospects know the problems they have as well as the solutions to the problem. So you build resonance there. With the PAPs, with the problem-aware people, you build resonance because they know the problems they have. So by calling out the problems they have, they can be like, yeah, I had that last week actually. I've been looking for a solution to that. Can you help me? Right. So you build resonance with that's how you build resonance with the PAPs. And then with the UAPs, what you can then do is by calling out the problem, they might not know that they have a problem, but by naming the problem, you might actually help them to understand that, oh, actually, yeah, I felt that last year, but I didn't know what that was. Yeah, I definitely have that in my business. Can you help me out? So it kind of creates resonance with the UAPs by giving them oh yeah, that's me. I didn't know I had that. That kind of thing. So you actually build resonance with some UAPs as well, right? And so that's kind of what happens. Now, I always say that the specialist model also puts you in good stead for scale because your efforts are streamlined, right? You can then build infrastructure for scale. So what I mean by that is now we know we're talking to B2B consultants and we're helping them to create products, for example. That's the problem we're solving. Now we can get sales scripts and then hire salespeople, give them the sales scripts and train them on the sales scripts and scale that way. We can get our marketing efforts are better now. Now we have a particular problem that we're always calling out and we're always communicating and things like that. So that's the specialist model. It puts you in good stead for scale, right? Because you're able to build infrastructure to help you scale your efforts and things like that. Now, not to say that you can't do these things by being a generalist, but if you think about it, imagine as a small operation, you have to create sales scripts for healthcare organizations and sales scripts for educational organizations and sales scripts for IT organizations and FMCG. And imagine how many sales scripts you have to build. Then you have to train how many salespeople on that. And then now you have salespeople who are diluted because they're also talking to all kinds of companies and things like that. So streamlining your efforts just make it easier. What then happens is the advantages of having this kind of thing is, one, it helps to stand out from peers, right? From generalist peers. Two, it helps you to challenge giants because this is the only way you can challenge giants. That's why I wrote this down, because if you want to generalize along with the giants, so imagine you're a tax consultant, for example. PwC have so many people working for them, have so many consultants and marketers and sales team and all of that. They have the resources to be able to come up with sales scripts for every single vertical out there and train different people and hire people because they're that big. But if you want to do that as a small organization, you will spread yourself too thin. And this is the reason why it's difficult to scale, because we want to take on every single thing out there, right? If we streamline our efforts, we will streamline our targets. Extend my table. If we streamline our targets, then it helps us to be able to build more of an infrastructure around growing our businesses, right? This is the thinking. So again, this is not me saying if you specialize, you have access to way more projects, but I know if you specialize, you can actually build an infrastructure for scale. Now, the other thing I like to say here is that there are times when we're too busy with work, and there are times when we're looking for what we'll take on anything, right? And so, of course, there are times that people will come and say, yes, I'm looking for somebody that can help me with my IT infrastructure or something, whatever it is. But you decided that you were focused on another thing, but you also know how to fix IT infrastructure. Of course, you take the project. And the fact that you call yourself a specialist in something doesn't mean that people will reach out to you for other things. I know a hospital in Nigeria a clinic rather, their specialty is in neural health, essentially spine, brain, things like that. If I have malaria and I'm close to that place, I can still go there for help. At least they can help me to an extent and then send me off somewhere else. The reason people will reach out to you is not because you're a specialist in that thing alone. If you've built enough of a reputation in your area of specialty, people reach out to you for other things. And depending on what stage you are, you can take on that as well. There's somebody that did a branding project for a company that does that rents out storage units, and they help them with their branding so flawlessly that they told the branding person, the branding company, to help them with their architecture. Of course, they had an architect already, but they liked the way he thought, and they said, "Can you help us with this?" And the guy responded to them by saying, "I'm not an architect, right?" The founders were like, "Of course, we're not stupid. We know what we're saying. You're going to work with the architect, but we want you to introduce some ideas for them and work with them and things like that." So my point being, the fact that you specialize in one thing doesn't mean you will never get to work on other things. People will reach out to you for other things. It's all about trust. Getting jobs is all about trust, right? So anyway, so that's that. So this is the specialist model, this is generalist model. So I feel like I believe that if you want to stand out, if you want to scale your consultancy, you must, especially as a small business, you must specialize. Now, it takes a while to build in this specialization thing, especially if you've been getting by so far by being a generalist. My thing would be, while you're doing that, so this is not me saying, oh, dump what you're doing and move on to this, because to be fair, switching to this will take a little while, and you'll see why in the other two steps. This takes a little while to build, but you need to start at ground zero. So if you don't start building, you will never get to the point where you can now scale and scale and scale, right? So you need to start building this while you're doing this. I spent a lot of time on this because the other two steps, one is really building authority, so content creation, putting yourself out there, and the second one is building products rather than services, which kind of speaks to the one problem, one avatar thing. We'll get to that. But if we don't get this thinking right, if we don't go from solution focused to problem focused, if we don't go from generalist to specialist, then the other two things, even if you do them, won't work as well, if that makes sense. Before I move on, if you're bought into specializing, I have a framework in the Consultant Clarity Kit document in the description you can download. It will help you to pick an area of specialization, at least one you can test, and then get data points and move on from that. You can always pivot, come back, pick another area of specialization and go on and on like that. You can download it for free in the description below. Now, once you've picked a lane, you've decided on your direction, your area of specialty, the next thing you want to do is to build authority in that lane, right? Build authority. And the way you do that is, of course, content, good work. Right, good work, because again, we depend a lot on word of mouth, and so especially with high ticket clients, if people can refer you, if people can put in a good word for you, then that helps. But a big part of it is content. And what do they always say? I'm not going to spend too long on this. What they usually say is, if you really want to grow on social media, on YouTube, on the internet, you want to become a specialist. You see where I'm going with this. I'm going to paraphrase, but I think the CEO of X, he said something along the lines of, if you want to become an authority on a subject matter, publish content on that subject matter every single day for 180 days. In that time, you will become an authority in that field. But in those 180 days, if you're creating content about plumbing today, and then another thing tomorrow, and another thing tomorrow, and another thing tomorrow, it models up your message and messes up everything, if that makes sense. So you want to become a specialist. That's the way to grow online. That's the way to grow online in 2025, right? So this is another reason why you should become a specialist, because the infrastructure that exists that can help you to grow your operation, that can help you to scale your operation, kind of require you to be a specialist. If I'm a large organization, if I was consulting for a PwC and they wanted to increase their online presence, not that they need much of it anyway, but my advice would be, have somebody in each area of specialty become the face, become an authority. They can present as PwC's spokesperson in that area of expertise, but you don't want one person talking about many things, if that makes sense. It's easier for you to just, or it's better for you to just speak on all the people that have grown in short periods of time, or people who have found immense success online, have been consistently talking about one thing for a long period of time. Of course, there's room for pivoting, and there's room for things like that. But if you want to grow, especially in the educational niche, which is where we live as consultants, then you need to be the face of a particular thing. And so that's the whole idea of building authority in that space. And as consultants, what usually happens is we set out to create content in order to attract clients. But what we end up doing is attracting other peers, maybe people who aren't at the stage where we are currently and are looking up to us because we're kind of a couple of steps ahead of them. Other people who just think you have good ideas, but we end up attracting our peers, even though we're looking to attract customers, but we attract peers, right? I'm not saying that attracting peers is bad. In fact, being recognized amongst your peers is actually good grounds for getting projects. But if you want to be in front of the customers, then you need to talk about their problems, like I said, and this is the way you build authority. You build authority by being the expert on the problem. So we don't approach by saying, oh, if you need strategy for blah, 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 blah. Sorry, I didn't finish this. We don't approach by saying we need strategy for, or you need strategy for blah, blah, blah. You approach by saying, to give an example before, these are 10 reasons why, I don't know, you're having downtime for the 50th time. And then you talk about the problem, right? You can even specialize further and say 10 reasons why you're having downtime as a microfinance bank. I'm not in this vertical, so I can't really tell. But things like this, you call out the problem, you call out the avatar, and then people can resonate better that way. If you become the specialist in microfinance networking infrastructure, and you might think that's such a tiny niche to talk about, but the thinking is that there are so many nuances that are pertaining to just microfinance companies, and then there are so many connected problems, because this is the nature of problems, right? No problem exists in a vacuum. So there's a core problem that has an impact on another problem, that has an impact on another problem, that has an impact on another problem, that has an impact on another problem. And this is why I always say, because you're known for this doesn't mean people with these other problems don't come and meet you. But from the point of view of content, there is so much to talk about. So you can call out this problem and say, if you have this problem, then most likely you have this other problem and this other problem. And so there is so much you can talk about. It's just a matter of zooming in and looking at details, as different from generalizing, where you're zooming out and then you're jumping from vertical to vertical. I say all that to say, being a specialist is the way to grow your authority online anyways. And then you can actually build information products out of it and things like that, which takes me to the third and last step in all of this, which is to make offers, right? Make offers. Oops, I'm writing on the wrong side of this paper. In order to save, dirty. In order to save my pen, I'm going to write on the shiny side. So the third part is to make offers. So the idea here is, currently we often, like I said before, we often are solution focused in our presentation. What then happens is that we attract SAPs and kind of neglect UAPs and PAPs. So that's one of the downsides of being solution focused. So when we hit the market, we're looking for who knows the problem they want, and then they can give us an RFP. This is what we're always fishing for. But the people that can give you RFPs are the SAPs, the people who are solution aware. They can then ask for request for proposal. We have a problem. We know you can solve it. This is the breakdown of the problem. This is how we're thinking. Submit a proposal, right? We're always fishing for the RFPs. But what if you approach the market by making an offer, right? Because this is the thing about presenting services. Oh, okay, I do this service, I do this audit, I can do this implementation, I can do blah, 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 blah. Do you need any of those things? Meaning that, do you have a problem that needs these things as the solution? That's different from making an offer. If you have this problem and this is you, this sounds like you. So we pick out the problem, the avatar. I can help you with this particular solution, or I can make this impact, and this is my guarantee, and this is the price. So here we're not coming to meet people we're not giving the prospects the homework of figuring out the solution to their problem and then asking us to help them with that, right? We're actually we're being proactive. So we know about the problem, we know the people that have the problem, we know the nuances of the problem, and then we create a product around that, right? So the product is this solution thing here. So it's not just a list of services, this is the problem, this is the solution, right? This is guaranteed that it's going to work. If it doesn't work, money back, or if it doesn't work, we stick with you till it works. And there are different ways of doing that, right? You essentially productize your services, right? Package your services into a product and then lead with the problem. So if you have a problem, this package is the solution to the problem, and these are my guarantees. Okay, so let me give you an example here. So let's say I do brand strategy and web design services, for example. These are my services: brand strategy and web design. I then decide that I want to go after IT startups. So I'm going after IT startups that are about to raise Series A, round of funding, right? And then rather than going to them and saying, I can help you with branding and web design, I go to them and say, you want to raise Series A, you're about to go and pitch to investors, right? We'll help you with your pitch, we'll help you rehearse, we'll help you with the messaging. So with your pitch, we'll help you with the messaging, rehearsal, design. On top of that, we'll help you design a landing page or full website to bring your thing to life. On top of that, if you don't feel ready after we're done, we'll stick with you long after the stipulated time period, continued attention, I guess. If after that you're still not prepared, money back. All of this will take timeline. All of this will take, I don't know, 1 week. This is the price. This is me coming to make an offer, right? You're about to do this. This is how I'm going to help you. This is the impact I'm promising. This is my guarantee. This is my price. This is the timeline. As different from going from place to place, trying to see, okay, do you have any problem that my problems can solve? Because make no mistake, branding and web design can solve a myriad of problems. We just decided to go after one particular person with one particular problem, right? So this is a bit more proactive in a way of looking at it, right? This is making an offer is a bit more proactive, right? RFPs or looking for who needs our services is a bit more reactive, if that makes sense, because we're looking for people to give us an RFP that we can then make a proposal to. However, make a proposal independent of or without waiting for somebody to give you an RFP, if that makes sense, right? So this is the difference. So you productize your package here, or you productize your service here, and then it makes it easier for them, because now you can easily create a marketing message around this. You can create a sales script around this. You can hire project managers around this, because we already have a stipulated set of things. Of course, there are some times that some customers will come and say, yes, this is us, but we also need XYZ. You can easily hire other people to take care of the XYZ, or if the XYZ is in your wheelhouse, you take on it. So I hope this makes sense, right? So step one is specialize, because specializing just makes everything easy. It makes it easy to scale. It makes it easy to build infrastructure. It makes you a little bit more organized in your preparation for meetings and things like that. It gives you a sense of direction. Build authority, number two. And then number three is to make offers. If you do this, you'll be ahead of 99% of your peers in whatever industry. I can guarantee this, because most people find it difficult to even embrace the concept of specialization. But by becoming a specialist, people will respect you a bit more. It's easier to grow your business, easy to build authority and things like that. So yeah, so without taking it any further than that, I hope this has been very valuable to you. If you have questions, if you have queries, please let me know. I have, again, the document called the Consultant's Clarity Kit. It shows you how to create offers. There's also a framework for specializing. There's a framework for differentiation. There's a framework for positioning yourself as a consultant in a way that is specialized, right? But by positioning yourself, I just mean the way you talk about what you do in social settings, in pitches, things like that. All of that in the Consultant Clarity Kit. By the way, if you use the kit and you have any feedback, please let me know, because the kit is actually a living document. I'm improving it as I go. So feedback is always appreciated. That said, please like the video. If you like the video, subscribe. We're a tiny channel at the point of recording this. And I hope that, again, you find this valuable. Until next time, see you in the next one. Peace.